It's Wednesday, so you know what that means, Opera Wednesdays. Hi, if this popped up on your view page, this is absolutely for you. My name is Amber. I'm your resident opera singer. I break down operas for people who have no idea what opera is. You may be interested, you don't know. The stories are as juicy as they are. Well, I give you the tea, I give you the drama, and if you like it, you can go find out if an opera theater is doing it near you. This Opera Wednesday is a little special. It's a little special because it is brought to you by Castle of Our Skins. They are a Boston-based group dedicated to inspiring cultural curiosity and celebrating Black artistry through music and all kinds of artistry. So go check them out. I'm going to be tagging them in this week's Opera Wednesday. Now, it only seems right. They're based in Boston. I think we should go. Come on.
Báilame Gogodán, brinca como Tarzán, me encaramo arriba de ti, te como un flan, la bola se me inflan, claro que se me inflan, no te estás jamaqueando como que son un pimpán, tómala donde Juan, y no el de los palotes, haciendo un cocote de gira pa' donde ve el cote, de Victoria Secret.
We made it. We're in Boston. Hi, this is Opera Wednesday Part 1. Did I tell y'all what we were doing? This is an opera about the human rights activist, the legend, the revolutionary, Malcolm X. It's called X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X by the brilliant Anthony Davis, Pulitzer Prize winner. Listen, amazing. Also, it's a family affair because Talani Davis is the librettist for the opera and Christopher Davis wrote the story. It's a family affair. It's a thing. Let's get into the wild ride. It was once said that the revolution will not be televised, but it will absolutely be televised here on Opera Wednesday. And actually, it's going to be presented at the Strand June 17th at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. in Dorchester or Boston, Massachusetts. So let's get into the tea of this soul-shifting opera. Okay, so the opera starts at the Marcus Garvey Universal Improvement Association, okay? Better known as UNIA. Also, there's always construction happening in Boston. It's above my head right now. Excuse it. We still gonna get into it though. So you don't know who Marcus Garvey is? Google him, please. But this particular organization represents the largest mass movement in American history, equivalent to probably bigger than Black Lives Matter. Their biggest thing was African Americans going back to Africa and our homeland. And so you hear this, the opera starts like it's this number called Africa for Africans. And it's so brilliantly written. It's like you hear the complexity of being an African American born in a country that doesn't necessarily want you. Some of you will get that. So you hear the complexities. It is definitely a breakout part of this opera. It catches your attention. If nothing, this will grab your attention. Chaotic but brilliant AF. So the whole show is a little different in that it shows the different parts that made Malcolm Little, which is his born name, Malcolm X. So at this meeting, they're talking about these two white supremacists who are terrorizing the neighborhood, okay? This is taking place in Michigan. This is where Malcolm X was born. Now, one group they knew for sure was the KKK, and I've heard of that, but then they talked about the Black Legion. What in the world? And the Night Riders are also mentioned. This is important, keep this in mind. So while they're at this meeting talking about what they need to do, okay, Opera Wednesday Part 2. They're at this meeting talking about the white supremacist groups that are terrorizing them in Michigan, trying to figure out a plan of what they need to do to protect themselves. And then the scene shifts. The scene shifts to Malcolm and his mom at the house. His mom's name is Louise. She's worried about Earl. Earl is his dad, Earl Little. And remember, I told you there are white supremacist groups terrorizing the neighborhood. So she is all in shambles. Like, he should have came home. Where is he? While she's worrying, police show up at the door. And we found out terrible news. We find out that Earl Little, Malcolm Little's dad, has been murdered. train tracks were involved. And let me put a pause in this because I was a little curious. So I found out that a group called the Black Legion did it, supposedly. They did it. And the state of Michigan refused to press charges. They refused to prosecute because they said he died by, he unalived himself. Now, I'm not calling them people out. Well, actually, I am. They refused to do what they needed to do. Karma is real. No one was held accountable for this. So hold on to that info because it's also important. Well, with everything going on, Malcolm X had multiple siblings, okay? So it's his mother. I want to say he had at least 5 or 6 siblings, if not more. She's trying to comprehend what's going on. I also found out that they didn't want to give her insurance money for his father's passing because they claimed he unalived himself. And so they gave her a hard time, and because she fought them, she was a revolutionary within herself, okay? Because she fought them, somehow she ends up in the crazy house. So in this opera, you see this, a social worker pops up. I'm playing the social worker, come see me. A social worker pops up and she's like, the father is dead. The mother's crazy as hell. Let's make all these kids wards of the state because, ma'am, be better. So that's what happens. Malcolm ends up in the system. He eventually ends up in Boston with his sister, Ella. Now, in Boston, the streets were calling his name. He went to the streets. And he ended up in some shady shit. As the great VA legend said, from ghetto to ghetto, from backyard to yard, I'm your neighborhood pusher. Call me Subwoof. Shout out to Pharrell and Pusha T, Virginia. Anywho, that lands him in jail. Now, for those of you who do not know what a pusher is, it is the local pharmaceutical distributor. Okay, Opera Wednesday Part 3, X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X. Okay, I told y'all he ended up in some shady shit in Boston. That lands him in jail because there are some consequences for some actions. In jail, he was introduced to the Nation of Islam. And you see all of this in the opera. I told you, it's the moving parts of what made him who he is, the legend that he is and what we know. So, the opera also covers his name change. Because remember, I said his born name was Malcolm Little. And while he was in jail, he changed his name. And one quote from the opera that stands out to me, X will stand for what was lost. X will stand until God returns. There's meaning behind it. It's not just, oh, I like this aesthetic. I want to be this cool individual. It's meaning behind it. And I feel like the opera does a great job at addressing the emotional part of that. So he spends about 60 years in prison. He gets out. He is a figurehead automatically in the Nation of Islam. And what he stood on was his faith and also justice and equality. So you'll hear this chant in the opera, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And it's like you hear the drums. Like this music is like jazz. You hear the African beats. You hear even the opera aspects have the jazz infused in it. So good. And along with that, Allahu Akbar, freedom, justice, freedom, equality. Like, as a listener, you have a good time. It's a moment. It's a whole vibe. And as the music goes on, you hear who he is as an individual. You hear who he is as his platform, right? And who he wants us as Black people to be. It's not just, be difficult. No. It is stand for what you want, stand for what you know you deserve this. The way Anthony puts this together. Okay. I'll give that an amber response. So in the opera, you have this figure called Queen Mother. Also, playing Queen Mother, come see me. She is like the musical hug or the equivalent of you is kind, you is smart, you is important. She is calm in chaos. I feel like she is an ethereal being, okay? And she just states who you are And her music is, it's just so cool. And she sings this calm line on top of it. Opera Wednesday, Part 4, X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X. Okay, so remember I told you about the figure Queen Mother in this opera. I'm gonna give you a little snippet of her music. She starts with, we must live as Africans here. We're not of this place. Like it's so good. So they move along in the opera. Of course, they put music to his famous speech, By Any Means Necessary. Okay? And then there's this moment, like I told you, it's just chunks of what made him who he is. Then there's this moment of We Are a Nation. Okay? And the phrase is, it almost sounds, you see like us as a nation just rising to the potential that we can be. And you hear that, okay? We are a nation dying to be born is how it starts. And Reginald, Ella, everybody is singing, the chorus is singing. This is honestly one of my favorite parts in this opera because it just it's powerful without even trying. It's so good. And the end chord, okay, I'm not gonna cry. The end chord is like, we are a nation dying to be. That's how it ends. Not even dying to be, we just want to exist. And it's just so cool how he writes it. So that's the moment that comes after all of that. So after We Are a Nation Dying to Be, it's the famous interview that he had after President Kennedy was assassinated, 1963. Now, he had a meeting with the Honorable Elijah, and he told him, don't say nothing crazy. So he goes to this interview. And he says, the chickens have come home to roost. I know you heard that. I know you've heard that quote. Well, that got him in trouble. That got him in huge trouble. And the Honorable Elijah is like, I told you, don't say nothing crazy. You over here talking about chickens and roosted while the nation is mourning Kennedy's death. And he don't feel sorry for it because he said what he said. And I mean, you have to give some respect to a man who stand on what he said. Because he won't all the way wrong. But never mind that. He said what he said and he got in trouble. So Elijah's like, don't make more enemies than we already have. And you hear this conversation that goes on. Wednesday, Part 4, Life and Times of Malcolm X by Anthony Davis. He just finished that problematic interview. Got him in trouble. Him and Betty, his wife, knows that things are about to get real sticky and that things are about to change. You see this in the opera. By this point, the Nation of Islam has beef with Malcolm. Actually, they got chicken and everything too because they want him out. They want him out. And at this point, they're like, he lying. They calling him everything but a child of God, child of Allah, anything but his name, okay? And there are death threats, there are bomb threats. This man, it's a lot. So that's when he has another conversation with the Honorable Elijah. Now, this time he's like, sir, they are lying on me. They are, I'm not doing these things that they say I'm doing. And the quote that comes from this opera is, he basically said, you kick the dead while the country weeps. So he told him to sit the hell down. And he shut him up. He silenced him. So he couldn't speak on the behalf of the Nation of Islam anymore. He was told not to make any appearances. The scene is super intense. The music scene, super intense. With all that going on, he leaves America, decides he wants to take his pilgrimage. He goes to Mecca. And he also travels around Africa. And you see him growing up. You see the transformation of the more mature Malcolm, right? And this pilgrimage changes him. After he does his pilgrimage, there is another name change. El Hajj Malik Shabazz. And I learned that they add that because it's an honorable mention of you making your pilgrimage to Mecca, the Holy Land. So he gets back, death threats galore because people are still not happy with him. I told y'all he was changing as far as maturing. We get to the Audubon Ballroom. This is where he's supposed to give a really important speech. In the opera, you hear the music, it's so intense, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, and he greets the crowd. And that's the end of the opera. That's it. That's it. That's the end. We know history. We know the story. He is assassinated and he is murdered. And I feel like, anywho, let's go to Amber's thoughts. All right. Opera Wednesday. Part Amber's thoughts about X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X by Anthony Davis. Y'all, this show, first of all, okay, come see it if you are near Boston. It is being held at the Strand Theater in Dorchester. It is 8 p.m. The tickets are pay what you want. How inclusive can we get? Pay what you want, okay? Pay what you can afford. Just come see this show. It is an all-black cast, all black. Okay, it's a few white people because, I mean, we got the cops and a reporter. But come see it, okay? The opera itself is being presented by Odyssey Opera in conjunction with BMOP, that is the orchestra that is playing. The tickets, I'm gonna put the link in my bio. You don't wanna miss this show. You don't want, it's so good. This is one of the longer Opera Wednesdays we've had because it's just so many, it's so complex. And I think Anthony Davis does a brilliant job at keeping the viewer engaged in what's going on, showing a more humanistic side of Malcolm. Because when they talk about him, they talk about hate and they talk about, you know, he was ready to run up on somebody. And I mean, he was, but there was a reason. There's always a method to the madness. I think, like, okay, working on this project, the music has been some of the most challenging that I've ever learned in my professional career. But it has been the most rewarding. Just learning about him and what he stood for. Like, everybody's seen the movie. You know, everybody has seen, you know, you've seen different things and you've heard different things, but just this aspect, I've never seen it done like this. Go see it. You have the main principals, his mother, his sister, the Honorable Elijah. You actually have a character named The Street, and he is a whole character, okay? Like, in rehearsal so far, he's my favorite, okay? Just come see the opera, X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X. I want to thank Castle of Our Skins for this paid partnership, and it's awesome. Go check them out, you guys, if you're in the Boston area, or even if you just want to donate to an organization that is doing the work. It's them. I'm tagging them. That's your Opera Wednesday. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.